Peter B. Collins, News and Comment. It's Monday, October 3rd, 2016. This free daily news and comment podcast is now available on YouTube. And today's podcast can be a little briefer than usual. Your humble host had life intervene. You might be happy to know that I do have a life. But we started a new project at the house. A deck was falling down, and I became the demolition man. And so I finished that over the weekend, and today, with the help of a couple of guys named Victor and E-Bomb, we hauled away the debris and took it over to the dump. And manual labor is something that I do occasionally, and I have great respect for people who do it every day. My back's a little sore, and you know how those things go. Now, I want to comment today on the Donald Trump tax return that was grabbed by the New York Times. Marla Maples' ex-wife is the lead suspect, but the Times isn't saying. And as far as I know, Marla Maples has yet to cop to this. But 3 pages of the Donald's 1995 tax return were anonymously delivered to a reporter at the New York Times. And it's fascinating to see what Suzanne Craig got her hands on. What we're learning is that in 1995, Donald Trump, who presents himself as one of the greatest entrepreneurs in American history, racked up losses of nearly $1 billion. The number is fascinating: $913,765,884. The accountant who prepared the return used software that was unable to print a 9-figure loss. And so the first 2 digits had to be entered with a Selectric typewriter, and then the software took over from there. Now, the supporters of Donald Trump are saying that this is evidence of his genius, that he managed to turn this huge loss into a tax-free ride that could go as long as 18 years. 3 years before, 15 years after. And you and I enjoy limited ability to carry forward or carry back losses that we incur. Last time I tried to do it, the limit was $3,000. And let me say for a moment that no one is required to pay more tax than necessary. We have a convoluted system that enables all kinds of creative accounting, ways to evade and reduce tax liabilities. And I'm one of those people who pays the tax that I owe. But I use the deductions that are available, and I understand the tax law as it applies to me. I do my own taxes. But I have never had a year where I lost so much money that I paid 0 tax to the IRS or to my home state of California. And so, while you can spin this up, that Trump is a genius for figuring out the tax system and being able to take his big blunders in business, mostly the Atlantic City casinos, but don't forget Trump Airlines. Trump is a big fat loser. And he loves to label other people as losers. And you can spin this and say, oh gosh, isn't he brilliant? He maneuvered his affairs so that he wouldn't have to pay taxes. Rudy Giuliani saying, well, he was loyal to his enterprise and to his family by doing this. But these kinds of arguments only go so far. Now, I doubt that they will deter the hardcore supporters of Donald Trump. But the 15% undecided voters out there in critical battleground states may take a look at this and say, wow, this guy's a piece of work. And so it is a fascinating turn of events. We now understand why Trump has not released his tax returns. His claim that it was because of a current IRS audit is pure bullshit, and everybody knows that. And this is where I hope people will see what is revealed about Donald Trump here. He's a liar. He's a hypocrite. And he is a cheap bastard. And when you hear people claim that, oh, this is just evidence of how brilliant he is, and he's now tweeting that this shows that he's an expert on the tax code more than any other person who's run for president, and now he claims he'll fix the tax code. But like so many things, he offers no specifics. So will he limit the ability of real estate moguls to rack up big losses and avoid paying taxes? David K. Johnston has explained that if Donald Trump spends 15 hours a week managing real estate, there's a loophole that entitles him to unlimited losses in tax terms. You and I don't get that benefit. Will Donald tighten up that loophole? Come on. His whole, this offers more evidence of just how selfish and greedy this guy is. So I don't think this is evidence of genius. I think it's evidence of his ability to persuade people that his failures are successes, that his idiocy is brilliance, that being born on third base to daddy who loaned him 14, or was it just $1 million, to get started in the business. Chris Christie called this a very, very good story for Donald Trump. Oh, right, Chris. And on the other side of the aisle, Claire McCaskill, Democrat from Missouri, she's in the Senate. She said those losses represent real pain to many people who never got paid. And this is a key point that I'd like to share with you today, and it's not original to me. But I was linked to a blogger over the weekend that I'd never heard of before. John Hempton describes himself as a former fund manager. And he said he was the resident expert on tax avoidance working for the Australian Treasury. And he raises a really important question about Trump's taxes and about the nearly $1 billion loss. And he says there are only two possibilities here. Either the loss is a real loss, and Donald Trump was really out of pocket $916 million, in which case he has legitimate net operating losses that he can carry back and carry forward. Or, and this is critical, because we know anecdotally how many people have done business with Donald Trump only to discover after they've finished the work and delivered their services or goods, he refuses to pay them. And so listen to this second possibility. If the loss was passed on to someone else by Trump defaulting on debt, if that's the case, Trump should be assessed for income from debt forgiveness. Now think about this for a minute. If I am able to report to the IRS that I lost a bundle of money, when in fact the losses were absorbed by various partners and investors and vendors who didn't get paid, then those are actually credited as income to me. And this surprised a lot of people after the mortgage meltdown, and people who either narrowly avoided foreclosure through some forbearance or forgiveness of their principal on their loan. That forgiveness is taxable. And some people who were in deep underwater territory in 2008, 2009, were able to hold on to their homes because their lenders wrote down the principal of the mortgage. And when they did that, the individuals were often shocked that that amount of forgiveness was a taxable income item for them. So I'm linking to John Hempton's blog. It's called Bronte Capital. You can read this for yourselves, but I think this is a very interesting angle. And if people surface who were partners with Trump in the casino or the airline or one of these other failed ventures, they could make things very difficult for Donald, because he would owe them money, or he would at least have a taxable item there that could come back to bite him. Meanwhile, The fraud that is the Trump Foundation got official notice from the New York Attorney General's office to stop raising charitable donations in the Empire State. The letter was sent Friday, released this morning. It says the Charities Bureau has determined that the Donald J. Trump Foundation had been fundraising in New York when it was not registered to do so under state law, and it must immediately cease soliciting contributions or engaging in any other fundraising activities in New York. And the Foundation's compliance with the rules that govern nonprofits is also a concern. The New York Times reported last month that Trump's foundation doesn't show up on the charity registers in many states, and the Washington Post subsequently reported that the foundation did not have the certification necessary to solicit money in New York. And Trump has deflected criticism about his charitable giving, saying he makes contributions personally and he has been supportive of his foundation. He hasn't put a dime in the foundation since 2008. He often promises charitable contributions and then gives free golf outings at one of his company's facilities. So this just exposes more fraud. And one has to ask, will it matter? Are there voters who will be motivated by this to change their minds and decide not to vote for the Trump monster? Meanwhile, Hillary Clinton had some pretty good lines in response. But before I get to that, I have to mention that in the debate last week, Hillary Clinton talked about taxing the wealthy in this country as if that's a whole group of people that doesn't include her and it's not anybody she knows. Have you noticed that? Now, I applaud her pledges to fund certain new programs and initiatives by taxing the wealthy. But President Obama, who's had a couple of $1 million years because of his book sales, he's been fairly candid about that. And he'll talk about the need to tax people like him, people who make a high annual income. Now, with that said, Bill and Hillary Clinton have released their tax returns, I think, for every year since 1980 or something. I've looked at them. It's pretty awesome to see just how much money they've been shoveling in for giving speeches, and the claim that many of their supporters reject, that this indicates that they're peddling influence, that the people who paid them, massive amounts of money, six figures, up to $500,000 in Bill's case, to give a 1-hour speech, that the Clintons don't owe those people anything? Well, we know they take their phone calls and they set up meetings with them, at minimum. Anyway, Hillary's in Toledo, Ohio today, and last week I reported to you that the Clinton campaign appears to have written off Ohio. Well, maybe not. She's there trying to drum up votes. She was praising LeBron James, and she was hammering Donald Trump. He abuses his power, games the system, puts his own interests ahead of the country, she told people at the Toledo train station. It's always Trump first and everyone else last. And these are good lines. I think that they're accurate. Toledo's the kind of place where people work hard, she said, look after one another, and yes, pay their taxes. And noting the defense that Trump's allies have put forward that his handling of taxes reflects his genius, Hillary said, what kind of genius loses $1 billion in a single year? She also went after Wells Fargo. And as I've noted before, it's open season on Wells Fargo because these are simple types of fraud that the average person can understand, and political leaders of both parties are having a field day, scoring points. And these are the same people who did nothing when the big Wall Street banks and Goldman Sachs, the ratings agencies, all colluded in a massive fraud that drew some fines, but no personal indictments, no personal convictions of a Wall Street executive. And keep that in mind as you hear this kind of political blather being batted around the universe. And the last item I have for you today is a series of tweets. Jed Legum, who works over at the Center for American Progress, clearly a pro-Clinton think tank in Washington, dug up a series of tweets, April 2012. Donald J. Trump. Barack Obama, who wants to raise all our taxes, only pays 20.5% on a $790,000 salary. Do as I say, not as I do. Okay, that doesn't ring so well today, Donald. Here's another one from February of 2012. Half of Americans don't pay income tax despite crippling government debt. That makes them smart, right, Donald? Just like you. They're geniuses. And by the way, did you see the incredible Alec Baldwin send-up of Donald Trump on the season premiere of Saturday Night Live? You may have moved on from that show, or maybe it was never a favorite of yours, but they occasionally hit the bullseye. And when when Baldwin came out and corrected the actress playing Hillary, that the name of that country is China. China. It was just brilliant. And the facial expressions were dead on as well. All right, one more tweet here, and I don't have the date of this one. But it reads, this is from Donald Trump. Trump is an American that will pay more taxes in 1 year than you pay in your entire life. Well, Donald, show us which year, will you? Thanks for joining me today for my free news and comment podcast. I'll be back with a full edition for you tomorrow. And I remain Peter B. Collins. Just a little sore today.
Happy trails to you until we meet again. Happy trails to you. Keep smiling.